There we go. Okay, cool. We're there. We got it.
Before we get started in this discussion, just a couple updates. This is our wonderful group of sustaining sponsors who help us to keep the lights on and support everything we do at AIA San Francisco. So a big thank you to HDR, Gensler, ARUP, EHDD, HOK, PPM, RHAA, RNC, SCB, and BFF, and a few others below. Putting on programs just like this one. So we can move on to the next slide. And just a couple upcoming programs that we have. This is the Equity by Design program series. It's continuing the agenda that was started last year, the JEDI Agenda in Action, an intersectional approach to designing a just future. It's on December 3rd. It's a fantastic series. They have 4 speakers. And what's really cool about this program, it's also in conjunction with an ARE Challenge scholarship, which is for removing barriers for emerging architects in taking their licensing exams. So that's in conjunction with this great program. Go ahead, next slide. And we have our annual business meeting coming up on December 9th. This is open to all AIASF members, and it's a time for us to recap what an interesting year 2021 was, and also elect the board of directors for 22. And interesting that we have a featured interview with our architect for the new Center for Architecture and Design, which will be featured in this program. It's Josh Adlin of Adlin Darling Design. So I hope you make it.
Okay, is that a virtual meeting or is that an in-person meeting?
It's a virtual meeting.
Okay, just wanted to be sure. Okay, so I want to encourage everybody, especially because we have a smaller group, to just jump in. You're welcome to put something in the chat and I'll pitch it to the panelists, or you can just chime in yourself, please. It's supposed to be interactive, and we're hoping you're going to be interested and energized by it. The plan is that Mike is going to provide us with some background, some images, and maybe video about the project. And there's 2 projects here. There's the AIA design for the new headquarters, and then there's the project that we did as a collaboration to make the augmented reality model, which was used to communicate what the design would be. And then I have some questions I'm just going to ask the panelists, and I'm hoping you'll have questions too. Okay, I hope that all sounds good. Mike, you ready to go?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So I'll get started on the project that we did with, of course, the AIA, and presenting the new design vision of their space. And so we used a new technology called augmented reality from Magic Leap, which Shane, of course, is on the call with us. And we did these phenomenal on-site augmented presentations to many different groups. And so we had about 25 Magic Leap headsets. And what's really nice, I have one of the headsets here. What's really nice about these headsets is that you can see through them. It's like putting on glasses, and then it does a digital overlay of the 3D model from SketchUp or from Revit, and it digitally overlays it right on site. And it's 1-to-1 scale. And wearing these glasses, you can walk through the entire site. You can physically walk with your feet through the entire site. And we had about 25 people at the same time going through the entire design presentation, exploring it all on their own whim. And that was a fundamental transformation in how architecture is typically presented to people, especially people that don't know anything about construction drawings. So this is one of the shots here. Its intent is to show that, what are we replacing here with this technology? And of course, it's using floor plans and elevations and sections and 3D renderings to convey design intent. Because now what we can do is literally project the entire design right on site using these augmented glasses. And so we had a very big display set up where we had about 25 of these headsets, and we set up the models, and people who came to the presentation could come to our station, pick up one of these glasses and put them on, and then start walking around the entire space, seeing the future of that overlay. And then little fun stuff would happen. People would realize that other people had the glasses on, and then they would realize that they were seeing the same thing. And then they would go and talk about it, and they were pointing at design elements. And it was a fundamental way to increase communication, collaboration, and transparency, because everybody can understand 3D. And so we did 2 full days of presentations, and I'll cycle through some photos here. And it was just phenomenal because it gave people who don't know anything about architectural design in terms of construction drawings, or being able to be like, oh, this is what the rendering would look like from over here, a full transparent view of the whole space, and they could talk about very specific things. This here is Tori. She's the architect on the project, and so she went and explored her space, and she was very happy and excited to see so many other people exploring her space, exploring her design, and it was just phenomenal for her. And then over here on one of the last images, you can see people, they have these glasses on, they can see through the glasses. That's really important to note. They see through the glasses, and they're seeing a 3D object in space of the design intent. And so in here, there's an entire large bookshelf, and there's a cafe, and they're seeing that, and they're able to talk about that, and they can see it from their own angle. They can see it from pretty much, their point of view. And these are some screen grabs from the headsets. It's only from one side of the lens, so the color and the rendering is not fully there, but it does give a pretty good impression of that overlay. And so you can see that overlay here. The architects use SketchUp, and the SketchUp model was phenomenal. It was very well detailed. It doesn't always have to be, but in this case, they took the time. And we are able to use all that detail to people's full ability. And so to reiterate again, these glasses you put on project the 3D model in front of you, and you can walk around physically through the entire space.
Excuse me, Mike, can you go back to the slide before? And this, there you go. Okay. Can you explain what we're seeing here?
Yeah, so this is the main entrance of the space. And so you can see here, this is the existing, all the concrete columns. And then the architects, Adel and Darling, 3D modeled the existing space as well as the new design. And so wearing the glasses, the digital projection is the 3D SketchUp one-to-one right on top of the space. And so this is a screen, this is basically a capture from these glasses here. And you're free to move through the entire thing. And I'll show a video of that in a second. Oh.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Oh, we have somebody new in the space as well.
Yes.
And you can see out to the pyramid building out the window?
Oh, Adel Darling found a 3D model of the Transamerica pyramid.
Uh-huh.
And so that's a 3D model in the SketchUp model, which of course will be on, in the design intent, will be on display as a real 3D model in the space, as like an architectural model. In this case, it's a SketchUp model. So we projected the whole SketchUp model, and the Transamerica pyramid happened to be a model in the SketchUp model shown through the glasses.
It's really just an idea of the kind of scale of exhibitions that we could have in the space. So we won't necessarily have a Transamerica pyramid in the space. That's just for kind of an idea for display.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to throw in the questions as they come. So there's a question about the the size of the scale of the project. So the size of the model. My
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it can be anything from a part of a room to an entire campus, but maybe
Yeah,
you can
we've
talk more about the bit size of the file.
yeah.
You know,
So
like
I mean,
if there's a like an empty parking spot between two buildings, can we
oh, yeah.
actually do that?
Yeah.
Rendering and walk through quite a few spaces within this
Yes.
parking lot?
Yes.
Or can it go like totally 1 acre and you can walk around and see all these different duplex or fourplex on the site,
Yes. I've done.
multiple
Yeah.
buildings?
I've done. That's right. And so again, everything's. The Magic Leaps I found can get away with about a gigabyte of file size, depending on the level of detail. But let's say you were to show an entire development or a campus, you could just keep the exterior of the model and omit the interior. Or if the design presentation showed very specific interior, you could just show that. But yeah, it's very powerful. It's just unbelievable what we can do now. We don't need to take our clients on design presentations with floor plans, site plans, renderings, or 3D walkthroughs. We just give them the glasses and the whole design's projected in front of them, and they can walk through the entirety of it on site.
Okay, so Shane replied in part that there are limitations regarding to the outdoors. Can you say anything more about that, Shane?
Yes, sure. So our device, as a representative of Magic Leap, I'm not going to be able to advocate for using the device outdoors because, for example, if you stare directly into the sun on accident with the headset, it could damage the displays, for example. But the displays are also not quite bright enough to handle like combating the brightness of the sun. So the limitation of the ability for the screen to get a certain brightness level means that the images would look dark in comparison to what you're expecting. So if you're indoors like this with natural lighting, it's a perfect combination. But if you're directly outdoors and you're not in some shade, you may have problems with the visualization. Just wanted to make sure I clarified that because you said parking lot outside or parking spaces.
Mike, thank you, Shane. Mike, I understand that you put together a hack for that problem.
Yeah. Yeah, we were quick on that one. We tinted the lenses in the past, and there's some really nice, kind of like tinting a window, if you will. And it works. I mean, it's not elegant, but it did the job. So my understanding is the Magic Leap 2s have a dimmer, and then that dimmer will allow for different lighting conditions indoors and outdoors.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
I'm sorry. And Shane, if there's anything that you want to throw in about where the technology will change and allow for other things to happen, then feel free.
Regarding
About the future.
Regarding which so far? Anything that Mike says?
Yeah. So somebody was just talking about dimming and things being dimmable.
Yeah, sure. So the dimmable display means a couple benefits. You'll have with the ability to dim a 4-lens like Mike did with nail polish or whatever he used or something like that.
Film tint.
Okay, yeah. So that can be done electronically in a gradient of say 0 to 255 or something like that. And you can have images that appear as bright but require less power. So with less power being used, you have less heat generation, which means a more comfortable user experience on the head and also less power usage. So longer battery life that comes with all this. So, and the ability to potentially view it in a more outdoor setting. I feel like I'm speaking like a lawyer a little bit, but yeah.
That's good. You work for the company.
Yeah.
So then there's a question from AJ about are what the users see completely in 360 degrees?
Yeah.
Or is it restricted to a frame like you had in the picture?
They are. So yeah, to answer AJ's question directly, when you put these glasses on, as you can see, if you see my camera, What it allows for, I'll just put it on just for sake of it. What it does is it'll project the 3D SketchUp or Revit model directly in front of me, and I'm free to look all around the entirety of the space, and then I can walk through the whole space physically. And so it's really, really powerful in that you're free. Let's call it freedom. Let's call that term freedom, where like, unlike looking at a 360 image on your phone or on your computer, where you can only move the phone around to reveal the 360 image and you're kind of locked in one place, you have the freedom to walk around physically and literally walk up to design elements and see them, explore them. You can test scale, you can test volume, you can see if things are too short, too high, all kinds. It's just unbelievable.
Cool. Thanks.
So the next part is, of course, because we're a Geopogo solution, of course, we work well with the Magic Leaps, and then we have the Geopogo Ar app. And of course, that's on the App Store. And so you can download that, and it allows for AR on mobile, in which case, again, you can project the models at scale. All right. Hi, Doug. Yeah, people are coming in now. Yay.
Cool.
Should I do just a really short recap just so
Yeah.
come in?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll go quick though, so I'll just do it really quick. Okay, so I think we have some new people in. I think there was Doug and somebody else.
Marsha.
And Marsha. So hi, Doug and Marsha. My name's Michael. We're presenting the presentations we did with the AIA for their new San Francisco headquarters. And of course, we did it with Magic Leap. And I'll just walk you through the story of what we did real fast, just to catch everybody up. So the beginning of my presentation was, what was so different about what we did? Why was it special? So as we know, in architectural presentation, you'd give clients floor plans, probably some renderings, maybe a 3D walkthrough on a computer screen. We can now use these very special headsets. They're augmented reality glasses, and you can see it on the screen and on my camera. People can wear these and they can look directly through them and see a digital projection of the entire 3D model of the design proposal. And so if you're working in SketchUp or you're working in Revit, you can digitally project your 3D models and walk through them physically with your feet. So this is not like VR where you're isolated and you're kind of sitting in a chair. You're actually walking through the entire space. And because you can see through them, you can collaborate with other people that are also wearing these, and you can all talk about the same design elements. And so we presented to several dozen people, 2 large days of presentations where they could wear these headsets and they could wear them, they could see the whole space, and they could see the new design intent digitally projected 1-to-1 scale right on the site at the AIA's new headquarters. And people had these phenomenal opportunities to see that experience. And so that's Tori. She's the project architect from Adlin Darling. And this shot's really impressive, and I should probably composite what they were seeing. But these 2 people are wearing the glasses. They've walked through the entire space together, and now they've both came to something that they're both seeing in the design that they really like. As you can tell, they're very expressive. And they're talking about it. And this is not like just staring at an image like a rendering or watching a 3D walkthrough on a computer screen or staring at printed drawings. They're interacting with the design as if it was already built. And these glasses allow for a really great extension of the CAD, BIM, and SketchUp models. And so these are screen captures from the devices. So these devices project 3D, and we can capture screenshots from them. So this is one of them. And so these are the design elements. The color grading is only because I captured from one lens. Of course, we're missing all the colors, so just keep that in mind. But this is Adlin Darling's SketchUp model. And so you can see that here, some very dramatic shots. And then when you guys came in, we were also talking about the Geopogo app for iPhones and iPads. which if users don't happen to have a Magic Leap headset, they can use the phones and tablets to project the models and then walk through the entire space and again see that space on site. And then just a quick little app shot of a whole bunch of different projects. Again, a user using the phone. And again, same thing. So you can move and walk through the space, seeing that. And I'm going to show a quick video capture as well. And feel free to ask questions because I went through that pretty fast.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Here, just give me a second, everyone. Okay. And so just for context, the user's wearing these glasses and they're in the AIA space right now. And this is the SketchUp model. And they're wearing the glasses and they've digitally projected the SketchUp model. And you'll see this in a second. You can walk through the entire design on your feet. That's really important to note. You can walk literally through the design on your feet wearing these glasses, and you can walk through the whole entire thing, and you can collaborate with anybody else that's wearing these. Just an incredible future we're walking into as far as architectural design presentation and pre-visualization. Just unbelievable.
Mike?
Yep.
Mike, since people are more familiar with VR, can you just very briefly describe what the difference between AR and VR is?
Yep. So VR, as you may know, when you put on a VR headset, you're typically sitting down in a chair and you're completely isolated. It's just you, and you're in complete darkness. This with AR, we go on the site, you put these on, you can see through them as if they were glasses, so you can see the site. But what it does so special is it does the digital projection on top of the real site, and then you can walk through the entire thing. So you're seeing the site, you're seeing the digital projection, and you're seeing your future design in space. And it's a killer way to present. And so you can see we turned it off, and there's that space. It's just phenomenal. And so I've taken a good chunk of the time here. That's the team. And I think I'll end it on this picture here as I go through. And so you can see these two are walking through, as you saw that video, that was captured from the headsets that they're wearing. And they're seeing the design intent from the architect, and they're talking about everything. And they just loved it. It was just phenomenal. I was very happy to see people, it's all about transparency and accessibility, because people who don't know anything about architectural drawings can't read them. And this was a way to make the entire design of the AIA fully accessible and transparent to everybody that saw it. And they just loved it.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And thanks, Amy and Shane, for joining in too.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is for anybody who's participating in the call to pose any questions whenever you want. So do you want to pose a question now? If not, I'll ask some of the questions that I prepared.
Can you maybe talk a little bit to the setup and requirements, like the alignment and to get the equipment to see? Is that very difficult, and just kind of what that process is?
Yeah, I can answer that. So of course, as Geopogo being on the site, being us, we made the process incredibly simple. We built a whole desktop editor, very similar to Twinmotion or Lumion, if you're familiar. And instead of exporting renderings, you just simply export the model to this device. And then wherever you happen to be, or if you happen to be on site, you can wear the device and then project the model. So we got that process down to we do it in less than 10 minutes. Depending on the complexities, you're not looking at really much time at all anymore.
I just want to add, as the client, it took a while to kind of understand it, maybe an hour or two to set it up. But now I'm a pro and I can do it in like less than 5 minutes to set it up. And I've even trained other people now to do it. And so it's really not difficult at all to go through the settings and to make the alignment. It's been really thought through to make that very easy.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Amy. So AJ has asked a question, what's the level of fidelity that you can get to in the immersive models? Like, do you mean how photorealistic?
Yeah, that's what they do.
Okay. And so the SketchUp one looked impressive. And can you bring in Unity or Unreal models as well?
Yes. So there's, oh, go ahead. Okay. So there's a couple ways that we do it. So the first one is if we're working with Revit and SketchUp, you can use their materials directly and just simply export it with their materials. And then you'll get the graphic look that comes from SketchUp or comes from Revit. The next thing that we will do is in the Geopogo Studio editor is you can use our materials to heighten the fidelity. The best way in the world is to do light baking in a program like 3D Studio Max, which then you can get to those really beautiful near photorealistic quality. You can work in Unity and you can work in Unreal, but of course the process would be working with the SDK to export to the Magic Leaps from Unity or Unreal. So if you work in Unity and Unreal, then yeah, buy a Magic Leap headset and go, just start going right to town.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Because he specifically asked about Unity or Unreal models. So can you build an Unreal model on your desktop and bring it in?
Yes, you can. Just note that the more graphic performance you're demanding from the headset, the smaller the model will ultimately have to be. So everything's in context. Like, you know, if you want a giant model, I would recommend keeping the graphics low and just work with the Revit or SketchUp materials. But if you got like a really nice intimate space and you want to go all out, definitely test it. But, you know, as we're all designers and engineers, you know, be aware that all hardware has its limitations, and if you're going to max the graphics in Unreal, just know where you're going to put your detail in.
I should say that I recommend Unity over Unreal if we're talking about Magic Leap specifically, for sure.
Yeah.
So Unreal wouldn't unfortunately be officially supported at this time.
Yeah.
And Mike,
yeah,
is your program based on Unity or Unreal?
Yeah, Unity.
Okay. Yeah. But you can bring Unreal in.
Yeah, like Shane said, it's not officially. I saw the export for it, but yeah, it's anybody's. You know,
it is possible to do. Yet you'll have to use. I mean, if you really want to use Unreal, talk to my team, developer relations at Magic Leap, and we'll get you going. But highly recommend Unity if you are starting from a new.
Yeah, Shane, can you put your contact info in the chat in case anybody wants to talk?
Sure.
To you? Thanks. So Mike, as a point of reference, you said some beautiful small space or something, you could get in a lot of detail. What scale space is that? Does this space qualify, this 2-story space with however many thousand square feet?
Yeah, so if, let's say, for example, like let's take the AIA space, for example. There's 2 ways it could have ultimately been done. And of course, the first way we took, which was directly with the SketchUp model, which you'll always find, I think that architects underestimate just how impressed clients can be, because they always want to make sure the model is displayed in its most beautiful extravagance. But clients are very, I don't want to say they're easily impressed, but they're even shocked they're seeing the digital overlay in the first place. But if I had a little bit more time on the project and the right tools, I would have done light baking. And so light baking is a 3D model technique from 3ds Max. And that's a really nice, easy way to get photorealism without performance impacts.
Cool, thanks. Yeah. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, then I'm going to jump to a couple questions. So first of all, what are the perceptions of AR today? What do you see when you talk with people? What do you hear? Amy, Shane?
Okay, I'll go ahead. A lot of people are really wowed by the experience. They immediately are kind of taken with seeing the design and moving around and being immersed in the space. Others, you know, I think we talked about this in the beginning, I think before everyone showed up, are a little bit like hesitant or feel like there's a barrier to putting them on, and it might be a generational thing. I think older people have less trust in maybe the experience, and also there's been some people that have said, like, you know, because of a health condition, they don't feel comfortable putting it on. But generally, I think people are very excited to do it, and it's been available not only in the couple tours that we offered over the summer, where it was a larger group of like 25 people experiencing it together. We're now doing more one-on-one tours. Because we're in a capital campaign and raising money, we're taking, you know, high-level donors into the space and having a one-on-one experience with the architect, narrating the space while wearing the goggles, and it's a pretty phenomenal experience.
So, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, before you did the demonstration for your board, you had to tell them something about what it was. Did they know what AR was?
I think that most architects are aware of this technology. You know, we're on our board, there's representation of some of the larger firms like Gensler and HOK. And I did hear several board members say that they had used it, but not quite in this context. Hadn't really used it like on site. They'd been in like room experiences that were immersive. That was one comment I got. So they're used to other technologies, and this was kind of new to them.
Super. Okay, that's very helpful. Mike, Shane, do you want to add anything? You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
Yeah, I find you know, what the future that we're carving out is incredibly exciting. And so, of course, not many people know that this future exists and can happen. And you know, and we had to stumble on it and discover it ourselves. And now we're happy to share that, because I think the opportunity to, as designers, to express our design visions in a way that our clients can get really excited about and participate in, is probably the greatest power we can have as designers, to say, look, participate in my thoughts, participate in my vision. And it's just incredible what we can do now. It's, you know, this is stuff we only dreamt of 10 years ago, and here it is. It's here with us, and we're doing it.
Okay, should I go on to the next one?
Yeah, I'd like to expand on something that both Amy and Mike said real quick, and I want to be mindful of time, so I'll speak really quickly, so forgive me here. But Amy had mentioned the generational gap perception thing, and I remember I told my dad what I did, and he's like, is that a VR? And I was like, well, we got some work to do here. So, you know, of course, it's not quite the same VR versus AR, but at least people know what VR is, and I feel like that's an incremental step, although AR will be, you know, 10, 100x the business opportunity that VR will be. But Mike also talked earlier about the ability, Mike, if you wouldn't mind going to that last slide that you ended up on, slide number 10, I believe it is right there. Yeah, so right here, first of all, I like to think the guy is acting like the football player here in that picture, but also they're not really seeing a networked application. They're both seeing the same thing, but it's offline and just kind of synced up. They just happen to be looking at the same thing, but the experience is not networked. Imagine it, if you've seen the beginning of Blade Runner 2049 or something like that, fish flying through the air, that kind of thing. If people are seeing the exact same thing at the same time in a networked experience, it cannot compare to a single user experience. And I think that needs to change. So that's the next goal of my own team, is to make network experiences easy. Thank you.
Awesome.
I
Collaboration,
have a question.
please.
So have you tried to use this on the job site? Like if, you know, they have the form up, the columns and the first floor slab, and you're on the ground floor looking up, and try to see conflict between duct and pipe and all the design stuff.
Yeah, may I have experience with this. So
Okay,
it is
good.
being used on job sites right now with clients whose names I'm unfortunately not able to say, but there are problems with CAD versus real life, of course. For example, humans built these things with their hands. There's going to be misalignments in where the electrical outlets are versus where they are in CAD. And, things are going to be a little bit off, but yes, they are being used on site with great effect. Unfortunately, you'd have to do some tweaking based on that human error on a per site basis. Like if you had 1,500 identical stores, potentially you would need to have small incremental changes at each individual one as modifiers. Hope that answers the question a little bit.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, we did one of the big tech companies in the Bay Area. We walked their executives and end users through a new factory space, and the end users got to experience the factory as if it had already been built, and they were working with the equipment as 3D models. And what was really special was they determined parts of the layout that didn't work. And that was very important because they ended up saving $250,000 in construction rework that would have happened because they were ready just to approve the drawings because they couldn't discern what the drawings meant looking at tape on the ground. And this gave them a volumetric point of view. And they were like, oh, wow, okay, I get it now. Okay, yeah, we don't have enough space here. Oh, let's move this out a little bit. And that was phenomenal to witness. And of course, the client was ecstatic. Because that's what we're all after. So at the end of the day.
Okay, does anybody else among the participants want to say anything about perceptions of AR before I move on?
I'm going to say that the technology, like the Magic Leap 2, is being prepared to be released next year. As we move through the release of these pieces of hardware, we're going to see an exponential adoption rate as it becomes cheaper, faster, lighter, more even more impressive, and this is the future of our industry for how we present design. It is just phenomenal to see your design come to life in front of your eyes. Even as a designer, you're like, we think we got it in our head, but there's nothing like actually seeing it. There's really something magical about seeing things that you create come to life even before they're built.
You can say that as a designer.
Oh yeah. That's my weapon. Dave asked me a question. He said, what's the case where you've used our technology that we built? And I said, any design proposal I present, whether it's a civic project or it's something to cause a little bit of disruption, I always use our tools because nobody else has the edge on me. I mean, you're going to show a rendering. I have an entire 3D model projection we can show to 30, 40, 50 people. It's incredibly powerful, these tools that are coming out.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I asked you all about the perceptions of AR today and what it can do today. And you've been presenting a project and showing how it's useful today. What if you were going to step into the future?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see AR going in the future, and in what kind of time frame? I know, Shane, you said that it was like 100 times more valuable than VR. So, for enterprise. So how's that going to happen?
May I give an example, or two rather? I think I have.
Okay.
Okay, great. So let me know if this is in architecture group in San Francisco. So let me know if I need to stop talking if this is a taboo subject here. But considering the case of the Millennium Tower, if you were to look at the imminent retrofit that's going on, you'd be able to be in front of the Millennium Tower right now and be able to look up, see the tilt, and then see the corrected tilt from the retrofit that's being added. Being able to look down, see how far the Old Bay clay goes until it gets to the bedrock, and then being able to see where the new sidewalk is going to go. You can see this all overlaid while toggling on or off. I think that's an excellent example of an outdoor use case for AR that could benefit architecture for sure. And here's more of a destructive one that I really loved from one of our nameless partners in Japan, where it's more like they literally asked me, could we see Godzilla destroying the city from far away? And I was like, I can't believe you asked me that here in Japan, but yes, that's something that could be done in the future for sure. So I think those are two things that I would love to see with AR in the future. And I think it's going to be totally possible. Imminent.
Well, Shane, you must be working with some companies on those kind of futuristic concepts.
Sure, I suppose so.
And not that you would reveal them, but you must have some idea of the timeframes in which these advances are going to happen.
I mean, if you wanted to, you can make that Godzilla thing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been made.
Okay. Mike, where do you see it going?
Yeah, the glasses are going to become glasses, or more importantly, they're going to become safety glasses for on-site construction and of course presentation. So we're walking into a future where the Revit or CAD model you're working with will probably become the construction drawings, where everything's digitally laid and projected on site, it's locked on site, and people can just filter through what they're working on for that day. So if they're working on foundations, or they're working on structural or walls or bathrooms or plumbing, that's the filter they work from. And they won't need to reference to the drawings anymore. And I think we all know how much challenge and problems referencing drawings are on the site, not only between what revisions numbers do you have, but then they'll go and they'll try and scale the drawings, and they'll place the walls in the wrong places and have to move them. But not only that, for me personally, we will be able to digitally project the future of our cities on top of the real world, and show brand new skyscrapers and in the city scenes, and show revitalized neighborhoods, and be able to showcase design presentation away from an abstract perspective into a completely literal one.
Okay, cool. Amy?
Well, I would just say I really liked what Shane said about networking and seeing the same thing in the glasses. So I think that would be an awesome direction for this to go. I like to think about it more like, next day, that I think it's a really practical solution for infill projects, projects that are hard to reprogram, like theater and performance spaces from 100 years ago. How do you get your clients to look at spaces with new uses?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a way that we can really start to reuse some of these amazing spaces for other activities than what they were first intended to, if you can overlay a great concept on top of it.
Awesome. Mike, can I ask you to go back for a second when you were talking about people using the AR model in lieu of paper construction documents?
Yeah.
On site. When will that be?
I mean, this can start, I look at, so we finish up this year. Next year, we're going to have the Magic Leap 2s, which will make design pre-visualization and presentation far more accessible and commonplace. We'll probably see it, our aim is to put it on every job site that we can get to. Then we're probably going to look at what the next generation past that is, where they get smaller and smaller. So I'd say, where it's the true fully formed vision between hardware releases, I mean, I'd say 2025 or less, but that's only 3 years away. And so just as we've seen phones transform, we will see these headsets and devices transform too.
And I was just thinking, Amy, when the center is finished and you move in, you will have fantastic exhibit space, but it's also limited in size. Can you imagine architects actually having projects that people can experience in that space at various scales?
Are you talking about actual physical models or?
No, an AR model. It's not physical.
Right, of course.
You don't need to reserve any space for it.
Yeah, why not? One of the unique spaces that we have in the new space is an old bank vault. And so it's very dark, and it will eventually have a skylight and be cut off at the end and have more light. But we imagine a very kind of plugged in space where it can also be adaptable and have a theater experience with great sound. And we imagine having youth programming taking place in that space. And I think that would be an excellent way to expose the next generation to, this will be secondhand to them by the time they grow up.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's a nice vision. That's cool. Okay, now I'm going to ask you like one last question, and this has to do with takeaways. So what were your takeaways from the project that was executed at the AIA? And what would you hope that the takeaways would be from this discussion? Who wants to start?
I can start that. We worked up to a presentation this large. We had done many projects beforehand, but this was by far I'd say the greatest one we had done yet. And it kind of took all of our learnings from the past into this one moment. And so my great takeaway was that dozens of people could experience AR of a future design proposal at the same time and have a fabulous time doing it. And it just, we all know how the traditional architectural presentation is. It can be very, just people looking at floor plans and renderings and walking through and just kind of nodding their head. This was like freedom. This was the architectural presentation completely transformed and reimagined. And people were happy and excited and smiling and talking and laughing and just freely exploring it. I felt like it did. There's something very magical that happened, and it brought people together. And so my takeaway is that as we continue our journey on doing this, the key value proposition is, of course, not only selling designs and ensuring the best possible design gets built, but really about bringing everybody on the design team together and when people understand something, people like each other. When people all get the same thing, they all want to work together. And I think that's what we're working towards: collaboration and effective communication.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you, Mike. Amy?
Okay. Well, I actually learned something in this presentation that the tools were used in kind of an unexpected way than what Geopogo first initiated with this project. It was, interesting to see how it developed with our architect and the refinement process and launching it and showing it to the different tour groups that were in the space. But that it's really been an outreach tool for us, that we were able to use it ongoing, and we're still using it today on a kind of weekly basis. We're bringing people into the space, whether they're stakeholders or nonprofit partners or donors to the space. So it's actually a communication piece that is not just tied to this industry, that it's helping this nonprofit with its fundraising effort and with its outreach effort to bring people into our new Center for Architecture and Design and to share the way that we see growing the impact of the organization in the community and getting more audiences exposed to the impact of what this industry can make on improving people's lives and on our quality of life. So I think, that was just a pleasure to hear. And we're just super thankful to both Magic Leap and Geopogo for introducing this idea to us.
Great, thank you. Okay, now Shane, I understand you have to go.
Yes, I'm gonna have to go at 6 o'clock. So thank you very much, Dave, Amy, everyone, for having me. And I hope anyone that wants to can reach out to me and ask questions about Magic Leap development.
Okay,
Thank you, Shane.
thank you, Shane.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Mike. Does anyone have any last questions?
Here, oh, sorry, guys.
Okay, well, I see that Mike put his contact info in, so you all have Mike's contact info and Shane's contact info, and you know where to contact Amy at AIA San Francisco. So if you have any thoughts or questions as follow-up, just please feel free to reach out. And so I'd like to thank you for participating and let you know that the next event, which is going to be on the third Wednesday, as always, will be on December 15th. And the focus of that one will be generative design. So it'll be similar to the one we had last month, but we'll be hearing from Space Plan Wizard, and they have new things to say. Okay, so thanks to everybody. We'll put out an announcement for the next event. Have a good night.
And then,
Well, great
Oh, sorry.
discussion.
and Douglas, take I put my contact information there, so you're free to contact me, and we can set up a tour for you.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I did get that.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night, Jay. Good night, Marcia. Good night, Annifer.